We are the media.
Yeah, says Elon Musk. And when I first read it, when I first heard it, I kind of laughed, and it took me back. I had a flashback to many, many years ago, earlier mid 90s, 93, 4, something like that, when I first saw an email message on a green dot matrix screen. Someone sent it to me from the building across, like maybe 50, 100 yards next to me. There was there was no internet yet, it was the intranet. But I was fascinated that we can write messages, and I wrote back and forth with her. But I didn't really think very deeply into it. I spoke about it with a couple of guys, and we spoke about the incredible opportunities or possibilities that this presents, but I didn't really sense or visualize it properly. Fast forward a couple years later, and I'm in front of the internet, and I'm starting to become a little bit more familiar with how it works and what's possible. I'm looking, of course, at online shopping. You can purchase things. eBay was there pretty early on. Forums, I can go on music forums and these forums and that forums and talk about politics and cars and you name it. And I started to have this idea, or actually that notion that, okay, that's it. Television is dead. Why would you have television if you can see videos online and newspapers and radio and all of that? And this, I'm talking to you later 90s, 97, 98, about that time. And I was wrong. I was totally wrong. Radio went on, television is still around, newspapers are still around. So I thought, like, why would anyone pick up a newspaper, someone else telling him, when they can go on the internet? And yes, of course, someone else is telling them what's happening, but you can easily compare different people. You have not necessarily this big, organized, very sanitized way of usual presentation, I think, of information. So everything has kind of follows a certain blueprint, a stencil, a mold, let's just say, right? You have the television programming, and you have the sitcoms and the funny episodes and the television shows and the cop shows and you name it. And then between them you have the news cycles. They tell the news, and all of the newsrooms, they look the same. You have a presenter, and then there is another presenter, and everybody has a certain idea how to attract more viewers. And then the next guy copies it, that there's a good looking guy and a good looking girl, and the dress is cut open to attract the people, and so on and so forth. And then you have to have a black person and a white person. And same thing with radio, same thing with newspapers. They pretty much all look like one another. It's true that many of them do have a little bit of an individual style, but it's very stale and very very not repulsive in a necessarily in the meaning of disgusting, but it's not attractive. You're pushed back by it. And the internet, on the other hand, you can follow people, or you can read people who write articles, but on certain topics. They have their own website, or they have a website of a certain people who come together for that idea. So that to me looked much more flexible, much more dynamic, much more fluid. You can choose, you can go from one to another, you can compare. The comment at a certain point, they started with the comment section because people, of course, like the engagement. And that was probably the precursor for social media. So you read a certain article about whatever topic, and then they open the comments. You can put a comment. Well, I agree with you, and I disagree with you, or this point is a well-taken point, but here it's a little bit different. So people can, on the spot, say things. Maybe the guy is lying, or he doesn't know, or he's mistaken, or it's not exactly true, or there's a different perspective, and they put it there, and that was in some way the precursor to social media. And when social media started, I resisted it for quite some time. So in the beginning, there was something that was before Facebook, MySpace, I think. That was mostly for music, so you could connect with musicians or fellow music maniacs. I signed up for that, but as far as I can remember, I didn't really utilize it. I would go to check once in a while what my favorite bands are doing, but it wasn't yet ready. It wasn't ripe. I think it wasn't a fully baked product as it should have been. It could have been much better. It could have been a big portal. So, but but it didn't. It didn't catch on, and I think it's still around. I'll take a look at it, but it wasn't as successful as those that came later on. So then came Facebook and Twitter. I think these were the big ones, and of course YouTube, sharing videos. So YouTube, I was on it pretty early on, 2005 or such. I could look up music, and there were certain people that I was following, especially in regard with firearms. So that was interesting. I was able to watch videos, and then that tendency to find out some information. You want to check how to fix a leaking pipe or something with your air conditioner or refrigerator or something with your car. Boom, you go to YouTube, you look up the video, and there you go. So pretty amazing. But there was some friends of mine who were telling me to go on Twitter and on Facebook, and I said, why? Well, what is that? And then they showed me, wow, so cool, look at this. You see this girl, she said it's my birthday today, and she bought a pair of new boots. And I'm like, wow, super interesting. Yeah, I want to sign me up for that. Yeah, I want to look at that all day long, right? And so to me, that's what it was. It was people showing off what they got to their birthday or what haircut they made or some nonsense like that. It was not alluring. But then someone told me that it's very good for business, and he showed me that this business is advertising himself, and if you want, you can just get in front of people and you don't necessarily have to pay. So I said, okay, good. Free, why not? I like it. So I did sign up for both, and I used them on and off, not very efficiently, but at least I got acquainted. And I like both, actually. In the beginning, I didn't like Twitter that much. It's kind of very fleeting, but you still get a good number of different takes and people reposting what others do. Very often, news comes out faster and sooner than on other media. So in the TV, you have to wait until the news cycle comes in. Of course, the newspaper, you have to wait until morning or evening, depending on whether it's a morning or evening paper, right? But on social media, it's very immediate. So I didn't really like Twitter that it's so fleeting, that it goes away that fast. But on Facebook, it was a little bit better. So I was able to connect with like-minded people, and then they started with the groups, the Facebook groups. That was very good, because the groups were very focused. You can do a group about this band or this topic and talk to people and ask questions. So that's kind of phenomenal. So from that perspective, it definitely, yes, Elon Musk is completely right that we are the media. Media now changed a little bit of its meaning, because media does not necessarily mean news. Well, it didn't always necessarily mean news, but even if it's a special interest, if you're looking at Woodworker magazine or National Geographic or whatever you have, Guns and Ammo, you name it, it's still fairly a compartmented, sorry, and fairly following a certain print, like I said, or a certain stencil, certain mold. Whereas on social media, it's much more open. You talk to people directly, and you can ask them, hey, you know what, this and this happened, the rear sight of my revolver fell off, and how do I put it back? And boom, you get 50 pieces of advice. Again, as things go, 40 of them are garbage and you shouldn't follow it. But if you have a little common sense, then you figure out a lot of things. So it's very helpful. So the media became a much different dynamic than it used to be hitherto. So you used to sit in front of the TV or read the newspaper and ingest what they told you, and there was no immediate feedback. Right now you can say, hey, this guy is not telling you the truth, or he's omitting some facts, or he's distorting some facts. He takes it out of context, or he doesn't tell you the whole story, and boom, you have a very immediate feedback. So from that perspective, yeah, Elon is very right, and I'm surprised how and why television and regular media still survives to this day. However, I think that dismissing them as evil and propagandizing and horrible as they are, I don't think we can entirely dismiss them, and that would be a mistake for a number of reasons. Number one, social media is not for anyone. Of course, younger age groups tend to concentrate more on social media, but not always. So some of them, for whatever reasons, they still consume traditional kinds of media. But especially the older people, I think the 60 and ups and especially the 70 and ups, they're not really attracted to the dynamic of social media. They just want to know what happened. There was an accident on I-80 West, blah, blah, blah. And they want to see what happens in their state, or what's with the economy, or with the social security, you name it. Or just sit in front of the TV like an idiot and stare at it instead of doing something meaningful, reading a book or being outside. But it's a whole other discussion. But there is still a big swath of the population that is away from social media, and it's very easy to get involved and absorbed in social media so much that you think that is reality, and it's not always. So I think social media gives you a more distorted view, even though it's not necessarily all lies and all purposeful lies, and there is a good counterbalance and different views and different opinions and different ways to put things, but that kind of the world is a little bit skewed world, because there's a lot of people who are not, of course, in their private lives they are real people, but when they connect onto a certain platform like Twitter or a forum or Facebook, what have you, it does not give an accurate reading or an accurate image of what's really happening outside. And like I said, there is a large cut of the population that's really removed from that. So ignoring traditional media entails quasi-abandoning these people, and so we don't want to abandon them. We want to reach them out. And also there has to be a way to counter traditional media, and that's why it's very, very important to have things like OAN and Breitbart and Newsmax, who have like television programming. Of course, it's very, very difficult to compete with those entities that are entrenched, right? To try competing with the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. It's quasi impossible because they own the market. Again, part of the reason why they own the market so hard is because the opposition didn't fight hard enough. They just went to different avenues, but they own essentially the distribution channel, giving the tone. So whatever the New York Times says, it's boom, it's like a command, and then all of a sudden all of their underlings, whether they are formally connected to them or not, the Washington Post and all of these super leftist entities, whether they claim to be independent or not, right? You have I forgot what, but a lot of like super leftist outlets, the Gothamist and the Atlantic, and there's many of them who are in a way independent and small, but they take the marching orders directly from the New York Times. So even though it's a very organic dynamic, but they know how to repeat the propaganda. And of course, that in and of itself is part of the nature of the beast, if you will, because very often we perceive political ideas as convictions. Well, I'm doing my little calculation. He said this, and this is what happened, and blah, blah, blah. And so therefore I vote for Representative X, or this is my opinion on topic Y. In reality, it's not like that. It's a certain trait of personality. It's a certain character trait. And that's why people are in gross terms, gross general terms. That's why they are left-leaning or right-leaning. Left-leaning are people who like pretense, who like to follow the herd. People who the media tells them that Beatles is the greatest band in the world. They run with it. You ask them who's the greatest band in the world. Beatles. When did you listen to them last? Never. They never actually went to the shelf and take out the Beatles record to listen to it, but they know what to say. So these are the people who are fashionable and follow what's trendy and cool. Whereas the right tends to be more independent minded. So that's why they inherently resent going to sources that kind of follow a certain print or a certain mold or stencil. So that's in and of itself problematic. They also tend to infight more because two right-wingers, if they agree on 90% but disagree on 10%, they will focus on that disagreement and they go their separate ways. Whereas left-wingers, they will concentrate on their commonalities. So even if they really disagree to 60%, as much as 60%, they will concentrate on the 40% and they will go along with that. So that's why the left is always inherently stronger and more structured and better organized than the right. But I don't think that legacy media should be abandoned. In fact, the best strategy would be to fight them from inside, as difficult as it is. But getting jobs with these big companies and trying to make change from within, and again keep attacking them and keep their feet to the fire, very, very difficult, but sometimes it works because they don't really issue retractions, or if they do, they put it on a Sunday edition all the way at page 275 on the bottom in tiny little print. Oh, we apologize for having bold-faced lying, fabricating news for you. But there is a way, and there should be a better way to sway or to change the direction of traditional media, legacy media, mainstream media, whatever you want to call it. So saying that we are the media, yes, in gross terms, there's a lot of truth to it, but we shouldn't, in my opinion, forsake and completely tell off and ignore the mainstream media. So I hope this was a little useful and of course a little bit different than usual programming, but until the next time, keep rocking on and on and on.